Folks, I'm Doug Page, and joining me today is Star USA Today sports writer Christine Brennan to talk about her eighth book, this one about WNBA sensation Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark joined the Indiana Fever in 2024. Prior to the Fever, in case you don't know, she was a star basketball player at the University of Iowa and has had a significant, some might say huge, impact on the WNBA. Certainly, Caitlin's sizable impact on the league was likely unexpected or probably something that few might have actually even predicted. Like Caitlin Clark, my guest, Christine Brennan, is also an impact player in the journalism world. Her distinguished career took her from the Miami Herald, where she was the first woman sports writer, to the Washington Post, where she became the newspaper's first woman to cover Washington, D.C.'s NFL team, which back then was named the Redskins. Today we know it as the Commanders. Christine, thank you so much for joining me today. Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Doug. Thank you very much. I really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And folks, just so you know, this is a copy of Christine's book. Great read. Highly recommend it for you. Christine, there is something about Caitlin Clark. She's a star on the court. She's a star off the court, almost simultaneously. To borrow from a headline in your book, she's a revolution. How much of a revolution and or phenomena is she to the WNBA, to women's sports, and just to make the question a little more interesting, the United States, perhaps even the globe? We'd like to start with easy questions first.
Absolutely, might as well. Let's just take over the world here. Yeah, without a doubt, Doug. I mean, the reason I did this book, and it was done very quickly, the reason Scribner wanted this book was and wanted me to do it without even a book proposal, without a plan, nothing, just a phone call, a Zoom call, and then we did it. Was because of the magnitude of Caitlin Clark and what she has meant to women's sports. And what is it exactly? Well, when she was in college, her senior year at Iowa, there would be lines, and I'm sure many people who are watching or listening to us remember seeing these pictures or hearing about this, where you would have hundreds and hundreds of people snaking around big arenas, Columbus, Ohio, at Ohio State, Indiana University, at my alma mater, Northwestern, at the University of Maryland, people standing in line for hours in January and February in the cold, in the Midwest, or the East, but northern part of the country. And they're standing in line for hours like it's a Taylor Swift concert or a Beyonce concert or a Springsteen concert. And they're all there waiting patiently in the cold for hours to watch a woman play basketball. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. Ever covered sports for more than 40 years, covered more men's sports than women's sports, but I've certainly dedicated a big chunk of my career to making sure we cover women's sports adequately, whether it's good news or bad news. That's not our problem. That's what we, as journalists, we just cover it, and making sure that women get their due in the sports pages and on TV, et cetera, and websites now and online. And so just to see that. My nieces were in that line as our family bought tickets for the Maryland game, and I went and we paid. I didn't want to be on press row. I wanted to see it in the stands and see the packed arena to watch one woman from another team who's coming to town, like the star of the show. Again, like a concert, and that is extraordinary. Why? Why Caitlin Clark? Why has this happened? Not with so many amazing basketball players. I've covered the NBA, women's basketball since the 80s, and WNBA since it started in 1997. In fact, the Atlanta Olympics were that launching pad in 96. I was there. I was covering the women's basketball story, among many others, at the Atlanta Olympics and onward. And so I've been covering this a long time. Why wasn't it Maya Moore? Why wasn't it Cheryl Swoops? Why wasn't it Diana Taurasi? By that, I mean, not names that we know, sports fans know, but people in the produce section at the grocery store. Grandma and grandpa who were planning their evening around a women's basketball game, the way that people did for about 20 years, non-golf fans, people who wouldn't know the difference between a birdie and a bogey, would do this with Tiger Woods' tee times at the Masters or at other major events. And so what is it? And for me, looking at this, covering Caitlin Clark, writing this book, being around her, asking her 40 to 50 questions, she answered every single one. She's terrific. She's amazing. She's 22 going on 40 or 50, I say in the book. The maturity is extraordinary, Doug. Um, it's that she's the high wire act. It's not, it's basketball, yes, but it's more than basketball. It's the logo threes, she's chucking it from the parking lot and it's going in. She's shooting from the next county and your jaw drops when you watch the ball go in. No one else is doing it like that. Steph Curry does on the men's side. Well, there's Caitlin Clark. So that's instant entertainment. That will grab you no matter if you have any idea if they're playing zone or man-to-man defense, anything else that's going on. You see this shot, this woman racing across the court, heaving the ball, and it goes in. Yeah. Improbable, crazy, amazing. She's sideways, her legs are askew, and it's going in. The passes, the beautiful passes, length of the court. There was one that happened. She's been injured so much this year, but one that happened in the season, middle of the season this year. So the book covered last year up till April. But as I was watching it unfold, she's throwing the ball, beautiful pinpoint pass right over the fingertips of the defenders, right to her teammate, Sophie Cunningham. Sophie puts it up and in, layup for a basket. And the announcer says, touchdown, Indiana Fever. This is extraordinary. This brings fans. This makes people say, I want to fly to Indiana to watch a game. I'm going to bring my daughter, my son, whatever. We're going. We're going to spend the money to see this. And there's no one else, not only in basketball, women's basketball, basically men's basketball, except for Steph Curry. But even Steph Curry doesn't have the passing the way that Caitlin Clark does. No one else quite like her. Men's or women's sports, any sport. That is the appeal. That is why she is the one. That is why she's breaking all the attendance records and all the TV ratings records, and is something unlike the women's pro sports, team sports we've never seen anything like it before. That's why I wrote the book, and that's why Caitlin Clark is just that incredibly magical figure. Sports, yes, but so much more than sports.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that and it would seem to me right now, and of course, maybe you share the same view, depending on what happens, what takes place in the next, obviously, few years, 10 years or decade. But when you think about it, I mean, it would seem that she's going to have a huge impact outside of WNBA too, and outside of sports. So obviously, it would seem that her influence could really be sizable in a way that no one could have ever have expected when she joins the Fever last year. I mean, obviously, she's a hell of a player, no question about that. But it seems that she's got a certain, I don't know, the French would say a je ne sais quoi about her that few have ever had. I mean, I don't know if you talked about Tiger Woods at one point, I know in another interview, saying that she's kind of similar to Tiger Woods. She's somewhat like Joe Namath to a certain degree. He had a certain appeal outside of football too as well. It's really incredible to sort of see because you don't see these people very often like this.
Oh, no, no, no. In fact, as I said, I don't think we've never seen a female athlete like this, especially not at the Olympics. So when you have most of our top female athletes either played, they're individual athletes, right? So over the years, Serena Williams, Venus Williams, before that, of course, Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, on and on it goes. Tennis players, superstars, of course, huge names, but not team sport, not women's team sport. And so that's the difference here. And then Olympic sports, yes, women's soccer, women's basketball at the Olympics, but that's the Olympics. So you will have, let's just picture the guy who might be a little bit of a male chauvinist. I don't really care that much about women's sports. The Olympics, though, they're wearing the red, white, and blue of the United States. Wave the flag. You're cheering for them. You're cheering for all the swimmers and the figure skaters and the track and field stars and the gymnasts. Of course you are, because you're watching the Olympics, you're cheering for the Americans. So that negates any kind of sexism in that sense, or any kind of feeling, oh, women's sports is inferior to men's sports, which I've heard for decades, radio shows, callers laughing at me that I'm extolling the virtues of female athletes. I'm getting laughed at. Fine, bring it on. I don't care. But laugh away, whatever. But that was going on. That was definitely going on in this country. I think it still goes on in this country to some degree. Right. That's what makes this so extraordinary. Caitlin Clark is not wearing the red, white, and blue of the United States. So if the Olympic thing where, okay, hey, I'll cheer for the athletes, male, female at the Olympics. I don't even care about that sport normally, the guy would say, or even a woman who would kind of like, whatever, I don't really care, but I'll focus on it. Caitlin Clark doesn't have the benefit of this being the Olympics, or this is why this is so phenomenal. This is why Scribner wanted a book sight unseen. This is why I changed my entire last, 9 months of my life, almost now a year of my life, for
Right.
this moment, for this story, for this one athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever would I have thought we would see anything like it. And again, it's team sport. And what is the bedrock of men's sports? It's your team. You and I, before we started, we talked about the Chicago Cubs.
Right.
That is a male team sport. That is the bedrock of Chicago. If it's not the Cubs, it's the White Sox. It's the Bears. It's the Blackhawks. It's the Bulls.
Right.
That is the bedrock for millions of kids growing up in Chicago or the area who cheer for those teams. Well, now there's a women's sports team that you can cheer for. And the Indiana Fever are the one that is treated like a major league men's sport.
Right.
That is the team. Chicago Sky with Angel Reese. When the Fever come to town, when Caitlin Clark comes to town, she sells out the arena.
Sure.
The Sky don't sell it out, and Angel Reese don't sell it out by themselves, by herself. She's great, she's fantastic, great rebounder, great under the basket, but she's not selling out the Chicago. Caitlin Clark is. That's where we are so different. This has never happened before with a women's team sport. And when people want to talk, well, yes, but of course, things I've covered for years at the Olympics, Women's World Cup 1999, huge. I deal with all that in the book. I talk about that. That was a team sport. That was a moment for sure. But again, representing the United States with the red, white, and blue. Caitlin Clark comes to us from Iowa, black and gold, and then again, the Indiana Fever, red and blue and yellow. She should have been on the Olympic team, and I deal with all of that in the book and talk all about, including new breaking news. I broke that story last year. What a disastrous decision it was by USA Basketball that looks worse every minute. Just terrible decision to not put her on the Olympic team. But again, she wasn't on the Olympic team, and yet she is still absolutely so popular. Not only one of our most famous athletes in the country, she's one of the most famous people in the country.
No,
That's how well she is.
no doubt about it. You mentioned the similarity between she and Tiger Woods. I mean, what's the similarity between these two? And if you will, what are the differences between the two of them as well?
Absolutely, Doug. Yeah, I covered Tiger the length of his career. So I had I have a front row seat for that. And of course, front row seat for Caitlin with as I was working on her game, of course, reporting it, researching it, and writing it. And yeah, the similarities are I think crystal clear that the people who would never turn on golf, never cared about golf, didn't know the difference, as I said, between a birdie and a bogey, they would rearrange their Sunday afternoons during Masters week to watch Tiger's final round at the Masters. And they would love watching this singular athlete go down, walk down the fairway, hit these incredible shots, magic, beautiful shots, things you never would see. The announcers, of course, extolling all of the incredible play by Tiger Woods. Often he'd win a major tournament, whatever. People would watch. It's fun to watch him win, fun to watch him play like that. And so, that was, obviously a huge, huge piece of the Tiger Woods mystique and bringing fans into the game and into golf. They would have never watched golf otherwise. And so that was clearly what was going on with Tiger. And now that Tiger is gone, you've seen the incredible drop in terms of TV and attendance and interest and TV ratings. It's just, it's been a big drop with him gone.
What was the interaction between the two of them when it came to interacting with their fans? Is Caitlin than Tiger is, and what's the difference between those two?
And that's the huge difference. Caitlin Clark will sign autographs, signs them before games, after games. It's extraordinary. And with her being injured, she would go in some ways all the way around the arena just signing, 12, 15 minutes of signing autographs. That's a lot of time. That is an awful lot of time. This is a really important point and very, very different. Tiger Woods couldn't care less about signing autographs. He'd have his head down, wouldn't sign for kids. I watched it happen. Phil Mickelson would sign, other people would sign. Tiger would just keep going. Kids are yelling his name, wouldn't even look up.
Really?
So that way, oh yeah. Yeah, Tiger's a great golfer, but he's had no coattails, none. At this point, everyone who covered Tiger and people around the game of golf, back 20, 25 years ago, thought we would see maybe 30, 40, 50%, or maybe, whatever, not 30, maybe 50%, let's say 25, 30% of golfers, male golfers, being young people of color, black people,
Sure.
black golfers, in other words, opening the floodgates, for people who didn't look like the vast majority of male or female golfers in the lily white sport of golf.
Sure.
And that hasn't happened. Tiger has no coattails. He's an utter failure in that area. Let's just say what it is. He didn't care about having coattails. He didn't care about opening the sport to kids who looked like him, to boys and girls with black skin or brown skin, people who were not for generations not even allowed to set foot on a golf course, a country club, and what have you. Tiger just didn't work on that. It didn't matter to him. He did not want to focus on that. Now, he's gotten better on that now. I mean, he's now speaks out more. He's certainly done more work with education. But even then, now as he's approaching 50, he seems to want to interact more with people. Never cared about that. Caitlin Clark, every time people will hear it throughout the book on her, in the book, as I tell these stories, how Caitlin cares so much about those little girls and little boys. She talks about wanting to inspire girls and boys. And she walks the walk in every way, signing autographs, going out of her way to have events where she's meeting kids, flying to Iowa to give away backpacks and water bottles to start the school year in schools in Des Moines and other places. That's what Caitlin Clark has done. Tiger Woods now has a foundation, and he's had it for many years. But that overt action of signing autographs, interacting one-on-one, looking kids in the eyes, what Caitlin Clark does every day, before games, after games, extraordinary. Tiger Woods never wanted to do any of that. And the result is that golf does not reap the benefits of having Tiger as a role model. Yes, on one level, people loving his play,
Sure.
but in terms of opening the game to people who have always been pushed aside and pushed away from the game of golf, especially the country club level of golf. And that is an utter failure. Whereas Caitlin Clark, I can guarantee, as sure as we're sitting here, Doug, that over the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, there will be girls and boys who will be attracted to basketball and attracted to sports because Caitlin Clark gave them an autograph, gave them a minute, spent time with them, went through the line and talked to those kids and or signing autographs. That's what Caitlin Clark does. And it truly is extraordinary to see as now a 23-year-old having that sense of appreciation for what her role is, taking it so seriously about being a role model for all kids. And again, Tiger just never seemed to care about that until later on in his career.
Right, right. It would seem that in sports, obviously, you have a very limited period of time in which you can actually be that kind of person. I mean, you have maybe a decade, maybe more than a decade, but you have a very set period of time in which you are the impact player of the day or of the year.
Right.
And so it sounds like he squandered that opportunity in many ways.